Hello and welcome to the show. I am your host, Diana Carter. In this episode, we will be highlighting the successes, challenges, and the future of the HIV Workplace Advocacy Unit under the Ministry of Labour. Before we get into the discussion, I would like to introduce our guests. To my immediate right, we have Mr. Keston Johnson and we have Miss Kimberly Gilbert, and both are HIV/AIDS advocacy officers. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you so very much. It's lovely to be here with you.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so let's jump right into it. What does an HIV/AIDS advocacy officer do? Keston, we'll start with you.
So, a HIV and AIDS advocacy officer, it's really an officer that is in charge of the advocacy of HIV in the workplace in the whole of Trinidad and Tobago, and that includes the private sector, the public sector, and the informal economy, even including the civil society. So we help organizations to develop a workplace policy on HIV and AIDS. We help them develop a workplace program on HIV and AIDS, and among a lot of other activities that include sensitization sessions, outreach activities. We could also give them referrals to other related institutions in relation to HIV.
Okay, and Ms. Gilbert, what do you like most about being an advocacy officer?
What I like most is being able to implement the national workplace policy on HIV and AIDS and ensure that the policy isn't just a document that sits there, but it actually has foot soldiers and persons ensuring that what is written in policy is executed within the workplace. But my favorite activity, I must say, is the sensitization session.
The sensitization.
Yes.
Okay. So for persons who are just hear the word advocacy, what is advocacy exactly?
Advocacy is creating change. And within our society and the context of the workplace, we're accustomed to a certain rubric. And with advocacy, we're here in our instance, what we do, we introduce persons to understanding HIV, understanding transmission and these types of things, and then looking at what can we do as a workplace, the importance of the workplace, the role of the workplace, what can be done within the workplace to ensure that persons living with and affected by HIV are supported, are cared for, and not discriminated against as according to the National Workplace Policy on HIV and AIDS. So we're really here to create that change. And we see that sometimes, especially with the mindset change that comes through sensitization sessions and then the creation and even revision of policy within that workplace.
Now you mentioned sensitization sessions. What is it exactly, and how is that used to help your clients and organizations?
Sensitization sessions are where we get a chance to really get in depth with staff. And it can be at a managerial level, a lower level, or a mix, right? But we do have, some people call it a lecture. We don't call it a lecture because we do different types of activities, different games, and we share with them what are the key principles of the National Workplace Policy as recommended by the International Labour Organization. So those are the standards. And we also explain to them understanding what is HIV, what is AIDS, how is it transmitted. So because we've realized that persons may come in with a perception of HIV, and they may not understand the body fluids, they may not understand their risk, if any at all, in the workplace. So sometimes we are asked to do specific things like focus on stigma and discrimination. And then there are times when they say, no, you come with, what you would like. So we highlight based on the industry that we're going into. Because as Keston mentioned, we do all sectors, right? So based on the workplace that we're going into, the dynamic, we would say, okay, this is maybe something we can look at. Maybe we can look at confidentiality. We can focus on safe and healthy work environment and tie that into HIV and AIDS and help people understand the intersection and the relevance and why it's necessary.
Okay. But I mean, HIV and AIDS has been with us for many, many, many,
About
many
40
years.
years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, almost 40 years.
Yep.
You know, in the 1980s, when we really became aware of this new disease, um, people still need sensitizing.
Yes, we have become, I would say, complacent in terms of educating ourselves in relation to HIV and AIDS. And the workplace is an important field that where we could direct our energies, because most of us, a lot of us, are inside workplaces, and it affects all other aspects of our lives. What happens in the workplace? It affects what happens at our homes. It affects what happens in our family life. It affects what happens in our relationships. If someone in the workplace isn't feeling comfortable for whatever reason, and if it's relating to that person being discriminated against, it could affect how that person performs in the workplace, which is why it's important for us to help to not just sensitize the workplace, but educate the workplace and equip them with a workplace policy on HIV and AIDS, based on a national workplace policy on HIV and AIDS, to guarantee that not just persons who are living with or affected by HIV is protected, but all workers are protected.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about what the national policy says with regard to um, discrimination, but especially within the workplace itself? And why is this important as a unit to continue to sensitize organizations?
So the National Workplace Policy on HIV and AIDS specifically addresses stigma and discrimination, because anyone could be stigmatized in relation to HIV. As I always say, you don't even have to be living with HIV to be stigmatized against. A rumor could start inside the workplace, and that person could be stigmatized. What happens is that person would not be, if that workplace isn't sensitized about HIV and how it is transmitted, and the very low risk of transmission inside the workplace, it can lead to that person not being comfortable inside the workplace. They can feel ostracized. They would be unproductive. They won't want to come out to the to work. So this is why we are concerned with that in particular, because we want to make sure that all is a human rights issue more than anything else. We want to make sure that everyone inside the workplace is being will be as productive as they can be and as comfortable as they can be in their respective workplace.
Okay, and have you been seeing a change when you go into organizations and you sensitize persons? Have you been seeing like a change, a shift within the organization when it comes to basically tolerance of persons who may not, it's just, we're talking HIV and AIDS, but persons on a whole who may have um, certain discrepancies about themselves, you know?
Yeah. I think for the most part, it happens over time, because we tend to try to not do one-off sessions with organizations. So that's why developing the policy is important, so that we can create a program. And with the program, we have year-long events, especially commemorating different days. So we try to work the program into things that already exist. So there is World AIDS Day, December 1st, World Day for Safety and Health on the workplace. So there are ways that we tie in the messages. And over time, we do see a culture shift. We do see that there are persons who are getting rid of the 1980s and the 1990s scary perception of HIV, and are now understanding treatment and how that helps persons. And to me, the biggest goal is when persons also are able to perceive their risk and know that, okay, based on the work that I do, there is no risk here. And one of the points that I always make in sessions is, you don't know your colleague's status. You've been engaging with them, having a time with them, you have a good working relationship. So then why, when you find out that colleague status, if they are living with HIV, you now find yourself at risk? What is the different behavior, You know, what is now going to put you at risk that did not put you at risk before? So it's about kind of probing. And when persons ask questions as well, we get to see that, okay, their mind is churning, their beliefs are churning, they are understanding. So I would say having multiple sessions and having a program really helps with that, because behavior change takes time.
Yeah.
And when you get knowledge, some people absorb it faster than others. So for some, it may be the first day and be like, oh, I didn't know that. Okay, yeah. And then for others, you'd see over time, they're like, okay, I hear what you're saying. And then you may get a lot of questions. You may get questions after the session that they may not want to ask during the session. So yeah, I think it works out in that way. We do see a shift once we have those continuous programs with them.
Okay. Well, now we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk about the successes of the unit and the challenges as well. So we'll come back with that. Welcome back to the show, where we have Mr. Johnson and Ms. Gilbert from the HIV/AIDS Advocacy Unit under the Ministry of Labor. And we were just about to talk about the successes of your unit. So, Ms. Gilbert, tell me a little bit about some of the successes that you've had over the years.
We've had success, I would say, in research. That's one area that I would start with. We are currently producing a report for mental health and HIV in the workplace. The study was conducted by our unit, and we even had a poster at the International AIDS Society's AIDS conference in Germany this year. Yes, so we had a showing of our poster. It got a lot of attention from persons around the world. We've also are conducting currently a KAPB study, knowledge, attitudes, practices, and beliefs around HIV and AIDS in the workplace. I would also add to that, we've done a bit of work in the community, and I love grassroots. So, we did work with Charlotte Street Vendors Association and some of the corporations last year. We did around World AIDS Day, so the Point Fortin Borough Corporation, Rio Claro Mayaro, as well as Cuva Tabaquital Paro. So we did some work with them there. And yeah, I love community work, so definitely count that as a success. And I will also say our ability to work with some of the stakeholders that we have. We've been invited to some of their events, and we present at some events as well. So that to me has been a bit of success. I would also say we find success in some of the everyday, because not all of the successes are grand, right? So even workplaces completing their policies, starting their programs, those are things when we collab with them for different activities, those are successes as well. And those are more everyday successes. So yeah.
Yeah, okay. And what about you, Mr. Johnson? Any type of success that you think that you would have had within the unit?
So a lot of the successes I really appreciate is when I see our client organizations actually go beyond the call and actually conduct their own HIV awareness inside the workplace. When they reach out to us, when they conduct their own sessions for us to help guide them, and also collaborations with them. So we are also currently pursuing to have the inclusion of HIV in the workplace as part of some tertiary level institutions and as part of their curriculum.
Okay, that's excellent. I mean, you mentioned grassroots and community, but schools and educational organizations
Yes.
also very important.
So the focus will always have to be on the workplace in
Yeah.
particular. We can't focus on the children, but in terms of the teachers, the faculty, or and as we said before, our client base is very varied. There's it's all types, every size, every shape. Each workplace also has a particular dynamic, So because of that, we have to be very adaptable. So when we measure success, it's usually in the sphere of accomplishing this our mandate within that particular or organization. So some will be very proactive, and others may be a little more challenging. But we look at every success as a step further, because just like sensitization and education for the person, it's it's a process. It takes time. So in order to deal with especially some of the outdated concepts some people may have of HIV and AIDS, you may start at the person and move up through the organization.
Okay. Well, who are some of the collaborators, who are some of the collaborators that you work with in terms of clients and organizations?
We categorize stakeholders as persons that we would as organizations, we would more partner with to achieve common goals. And then we have client organizations would be organizations that access all of the services of the unit. I would say we have key collaborations with the Human Resource Managers Association of Trinidad and Tobago, HUMAT. They have events that they would invite us to speak at, to set up booths. We've even done television interviews in collaboration with them. We also work with a number of ministries, right? One of our successes, I'll add, again, is we would have conducted 2 policy development trainings with members of the public sector. And that is our gateway into having different ministries and statutory bodies adopt custom policies for their line ministries as well. So we have worked with them too.
Okay. Now we spoke about successes. Let's talk about the challenges. What are some of the challenges that the unit has encountered during its time?
So as part of challenges, it's pretty much what you mentioned at the beginning of the session, where you stated that the thinking that HIV doesn't have anything to do with me, that this has, we already resolved that, and, we should focus more on more recent pandemics such as COVID. But the thing is, there are many persons who are living with or affected by HIV inside of the workplaces, and that is one of our that is one of the challenges in order to pretty much get a foothold in some organizations who may still have some of these outdated ways of thinking.
Okay.
I'll add another challenge in that the policy exists and it's adopted by cabinet. However, we do not at this time have legislation to govern that policy, to back it up. So our legal team here at our legal unit at the Ministry of Labour has held consultations in Trinidad and Tobago to hear from our stakeholders, hear from persons, how do we move forward? Do we look at standalone policy? Do we look at integrating it into what already exists? And they're definitely doing an excellent job so far in producing reports from those and headed into that direction. I think that has been a bit of a challenge for us, but we're also being productive by working on that as well.
So, Ms. Gilbert, tell me a little bit about some of the upcoming events that the Advocacy Unit will be embarking on.
We have some research projects that I think are very essential and will inform the work that we do and how we move forward. And it also gives us a bit of a picture of the landscape that we're working in. So as mentioned before, we do have the KAPB, or Knowledge, Attitudes, Behaviors and Practices study that we're doing. So we have to look forward to the results of that. And also there's a study that we have coming up with we look at young people living with HIV in the workplace. What are their experiences like? That will definitely inform some of our messaging and how can we provide support and inform the work that we're doing. We're also looking at wellness, overall wellness, because HIV does not happen in a vacuum. HIV has many intersections. And what we want to look at, that overall wellness within the workplace, and how do we move forward based on that.
Oh, well, I mean, we could go on and on. This interview has been quite informative and educational. So I know that persons will learn a lot, after hearing what you guys had to say.
Most
So
definitely.
thank you very much for coming onto the show, and we hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for sharing with us, Mr. Keston Johnson and Miss Kimberly Gilbert. And on behalf of the TTT News team, thank you for joining us.